Welcome to our reading of All Things for Good by Thomas Watson. Chapter 1, Introduction. And we know that all things work together for good, to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. Christian reader, I have always found two things to be difficult: making the wicked sad and making the godly joyful. The godly often feel downcast due to either their inner peace being disrupted or their external circumstances being unfavorable. To address these issues, I've written this treatise in the hope that it will lift up the spirits and bring a smile to their faces. I suggest they take a moment to remember that all things work together for good to those who love God. Knowing that nothing can harm them is comforting, but to be sure that all things will work together for their benefit, that their hardships will be turned into blessings, and that affliction will only make their faith stronger, this can fill them with joy. If Scripture is a feast for the soul, as Ambrose said, then Romans 8 is like a special dish at that feast. Its variety of comforting words can lift the spirits of God's people. In the previous verses, the Apostle has been exploring the difficult concepts of justification and adoption, which are so complex that without the help of the Spirit, he could have easily gone too deep. In this verse, he touches on the comforting thought that all things work together for good to those who love God. Every word is so meaningful that I want to make sure I do not miss any of the gold in this verse. There are three main categories in the text. First, it is a great privilege to recognize that all things work together for the greater good. Second, those interested in this privilege must be devoted to God and are referred to as such. Third, the source and impetus of this effective calling is outlined in these words, in accordance with his plan. 1. First, let's consider the glorious privilege. There are two things to take into account. 1. We are certain of our privilege. We know. And 2. The greatness of this blessing. All things work together for good. 1. We can be certain of this privilege. We know. There is no room for uncertainty or doubt. The Apostle does not say, we hope or guess. We know that all things work together for good. Therefore, it is clear that the truths of the gospel are reliable and indisputable. A Christian can come to a certainty of what they believe, rather than of just a vague opinion. Just as certain facts are evident to reason, so the truths of true religion are evident to faith. The Apostle says, we know. Though a Christian may not have a perfect knowledge of the mysteries of the gospel, they can still have a certain knowledge. We see through a glass darkly, 1 Corinthians 13:12. Therefore, we have not perfection of knowledge, but we behold with open face, 2 Corinthians 3:18. Therefore, we have certainty. The Spirit of God imprints heavenly truths on the heart like a diamond. A Christian can know for certain that there is evil in sin and beauty in holiness. They can know that they are in a state of grace and that they will go to heaven. We know that we have passed from death to life, 1 John 3:14. We know that if our earthly tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens, 2 Corinthians 5:1. The Lord does not leave his people in the dark when it comes to matters of salvation. The Apostle says, we know. We have a holy confidence backed up by both the Spirit of God and our own experience. Let us not linger in skepticism or doubts, but strive to be certain in matters of faith. As that martyr woman said, I cannot argue for Christ, but I can die for Christ. We do not know if we will be called to bear witness to his truth, so it is important that we are firmly grounded in it. If we are doubting Christians, we will be unsteady Christians. Where does apostasy come from, if not from disbelief? People first question the truth and then abandon it. Oh, ask the Spirit of God to not only anoint you, but to seal you. 2 Corinthians 1:22. 2. The excellence of this privilege cannot be overstated. All things work together for good. Jacob's staff is a symbol of faith, which allows us to journey cheerfully to the mount of God. What else could possibly make us content if this won't? All of God's providences are divinely tempered and sanctified, and they work together for the best of the saints. Those who love God and are called according to his purpose can be sure that everything in the world will be for their good. This is a Christian's comfort, which can enlighten them, just like Jonathan when he tasted the honey at the end of the rod. His eyes were enlightened. 1 Samuel 14:27. Why should a Christian be so hard on themselves when all things will work together for their good? The text is telling us that all of God's dealings with his children will ultimately turn to their good. All of the Lord's paths are full of mercy and truth for those who keep his covenant. Psalm 25:10. If every path is full of mercy, then it will work for good. We will consider first what things work for good to the godly, and here we shall show that both the best things and the worst things work for their good. We begin with the best things.